Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be talking about the cell membrane. Sorry for taking so long to upload, but today we'll be talking about the cell membrane in the first episode of this biology series. So make sure you drop a like and subscribe so we can continue this onwards. So, this is the cell membrane. So in the cell membrane, you can see there's going to be three main parts really. The extracellular matrix, basically what's also on the outside of the cell, all the outside parts. The cell membrane itself, basically the barrier between this extracellular matrix and what's inside the cell. And the third part is what's inside the cell, also called the cytoplasmic side. Basically all the cytoplasm is. So we're going to be talking from top down, from the extracellular matrix, cell membrane, all the way down to the cytoplasmic side. So the extracellular matrix contains these long fibers called fibers of the extracellular matrix, and they're basically made of these proteins called collagen. You might have heard of it. So collagen is a protein you might find in Jello or gelatin or anything you might find in there. So collagen is basically the structural protein that keeps the shape of cells and holds together the cell membrane. So you can see these are long, big, thick fibers, the purple ones, basically spanning across the entire cell. And surrounding these, you can see these green fibers, also called glycoproteins. You can see they kind of branch off, and they also are for structural support and kind of like helping them like stabilize the collagens and kind of holding them in place. So the extracellular matrix and the collagen proteins are held together by these proteins on the cell membrane, which makes sure that it doesn't, like, the extracellular matrix and all the collagen fibers don't really float off. And they hold them together by like electrostatic forces and bonding, which makes it like really helpful for the cell. And then also you can see these glycoproteins and glycolipids, which basically are molecules that like when you have like these molecules like on the outside, like food molecules, these glycoproteins and glycolipids basically accept these food molecules and other molecules and basically like put them inside the cell and make sure that these food molecules actually come to the cell. So now into the cell membrane. So the cell membrane is basically a phospholipid bilayer. It's made of phospholipids and have two layers. I'll be talking more about that later. And they also have these proteins, which basically make sure molecules can travel through them easier and basically accept different molecules like receptor molecules. And on the inside, you can see the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is made up these fibers, also called the microfilaments, and they're made of these diacin fibers and these actin fibers. So actin and myosin fibers are basically what you find in muscle cells. They basically latch onto each other and kind of like walk up each other. Like the actin is the fiber, the myosin is a motor, and you find these in muscle cells, and they basically do all the contracting and like extending. Okay, so that's it for the diagram. So now on to the phospholipid bilayer. So the phospholipid bilayer is called that because it's in two layers, the bi and the bilayer, and they're phospholipids. A phospholipid is basically like a fat, and it has two sides: the hydrophilic head and the hydrophobic tail. So the hydrophilic head contains the phosphates that you see in the phospholipid, and by hydrophilic it means that it's like attracted to water and it wants to be close to water. But the hydrophilic end, the fat really, it is like repelled against water and does not want to be like near it. So since it does not want to be near the water and the hydrophilic head wants to be close to it, they basically form a bilayer, which like maximizes or minimizes the amount of energy expended. So basically, the hydrophilic heads point outward, close to the water, where it like wants to be, while the hydrophobic tails point inwards, where there's basically no water and basically where it wants to be, since there is no water here. So since the head is hydrophilic and the tails are hydrophobic, it makes it really hard for water molecules, which are polar, which implies that polar molecules uh, cannot really get through. So it makes it really hard for polar molecules or water molecules to get through the cell membrane, as they can easily get through the hydrophilic head part. But since you see this, the hydrophobic tail portion is really long, it makes it really hard for them to get through, as it gets constantly repelled and bounced around the molecule and basically just ejected from the cell, which makes it basically impossible for water or any other molecule to get through, which basically serves its purpose keeping the bad stuff on the outside and the good stuff on the inside here. So these phospholipids are also called amphipathic. Amphipathic basically means one side is hydrophobic and one side is hydrophilic, which is apparent in here. Hydrophilic head, hydrophobic tail, making it amphipathic. So to combat the property of it being hydrophobic, and polar molecules cannot be getting through, it has these proteins, which basically these channels inside of them, and make sure it can pass through much easier. So also the cell membrane has the other various components like cholesterol and hydrocarbons. So the basically the goal of hydrocarbons, or like the main purpose of them, is to basically make the cell membrane more fluid. You can see this in the kinks here, where it basically pushes all these phospholipids aside, making them more spread out and less dense. And since it's less dense, it means it's gonna be more fluid. Like if you like get like a piece of paper, like a block of wood, to try bending that. But then if you had like some tiny cuts, like you see like kind of like crinkle cuts, it's much easier to bend that because it's like less wood and like less mass that you need to bend, and it's over a spread area, so it's much easier. But and then this is the normal state usually, the viscous, which makes it much harder, which makes it more fluid and more viscous as these are packed closer together, and this basically is a normal cell environment. And the last one is cholesterol. The cholesterol reduces membrane fluidity at moderate temperatures. So it basically means is that you can see the cholesterol kind of like binds these phospholipids together, making it like more rigid and less fluid, making the kind of the block of wood stronger. And it also kind of makes it like more resistant to temperature changes, since it's like bonded together with these like phospholipids along with the cholesterol. They kind of bonded together like really close. Makes it much harder for you to like break the block of wood, or like much harder for you to like make it like really like strain. While on the other hand, the fluid part, it makes the block of wood weaker, since there's more like kind of cuts in it, making it more weaker, making it more less resistant to temperature change and more willing to like turn into a liquid or turn into more of a solid. Well, not really turn into solid, because if it's into a solid, it'll like get closer together, which is not gonna happen. But when it's heated, these are gonna vibrate, these phospholipids, and basically turn into a fluid. But in cholesterol, these phospholipids are gonna vibrate a lot, but they're not gonna really like turn into a fluid as they're bonded to cholesterol, but not turn into a solid either when they're cooled down, because the cholesterol kind of pushes them away. And for viscous, it's like basically no temperature like resistance here. So back on the topic of these proteins, you can see one right here. So you can see there's an extracellular side and cytoplasmic side of the protein. So the extracellular side, you can see the N-terminus, basically where the amino group is, the amine group, the NH3, and you can see the C-terminus, the carboxyl group. And these proteins are usually always made of alpha helixes, since they have the shape that can like really pass through the cell membrane. And since it's made of alpha helixes, you know that proline and glycine cannot be into these uh, proteins, which can be helpful later on. And you can see that these proteins span across the entire cell membrane as they're channel proteins and let molecules that usually can't pass the cell membrane through. And since it's there, they can kind of be closed and opened based on like ATP, which you'll see more in like sodium potassium pumps or like active transport, which we'll go on to later. And that should be it. Thank you for watching, and make sure to leave a like and subscribe.